In today's video, I'm going to talk you through why you should be a little bit concerned with rising inflation and the impact it's going to have on the card market. Whether you're a collector or investor, it will concern you. I'm going to highlight some things that I think are going to be dominoes that are going to maybe, exponentially impact that. So make that grow a little bit faster, those issues grow a little bit faster. Then also some things you can sort of do to put in place that might mitigate against some of these issues affecting your collecting, right? Because, if you're a true collector like I am, you want to collect all the time. Irrespective of whether the market's up or down, you want to be buying cards, right? So I've got some tips on how to get through that. Now, to quickly touch on inflation, I'm sure you are all seeing that on the news every morning, okay? And you sort of understand what it means. It basically means that the money that's in your hand is essentially getting more and more worthless every single day. We're getting really high petrol prices, gas prices, as you call it, in the States. Food's becoming more expensive. Like I saw the other day in an Australian supermarket, a bundle of lettuce, iceberg lettuce, is like $10 a kilo, which is ridiculous that it's getting to that price point, right? It's freaking lettuce. It's just water at the end of the day. So it's absolutely mental. So the reason why inflation is a little bit scary is because not only does it reduce, what your dollar is actually worth, but these governments will start raising the cash rate to try and counteract that point, right? To try and put a stranglehold on inflation, get it under control, so then, the economy can start recovering, okay? And the way governments typically do that is they'll raise the cash rate. And I'm not sure if I already mentioned that, but Australia has just risen the cash rate twice, and it's happened in back-to-back months for the first time, and I forget how many years. We haven't raised the cash rate in a long, long time. I think the Australian cash rate previously was at 0.10%, which is nothing. Interest rates all-time low. They raised it by 25 basis points last month, and then 50 basis points this month, taking us to 85 in total. They're hoping to get to 2.5%. So we're at 0.85% right now cash rate. They're hoping to get to 2.5% cash rate by December, which basically means in Australia, we're going to have cash rate rises every single month. Scary stuff if you have a mortgage, because what that means is your interest rate on your mortgage is going to increase, right? So your repayments on a monthly basis are going to increase. And the reason why this is going to impact the card market is because you've got all these people out there, okay, that are buying cards, spending money like crazy, buying luxury goods. When the stranglehold comes in and the mortgage repayments increase, or inflation continues to increase, or they can't afford to put money in their petrol so they can't get to work, food's becoming more and more expensive, buying cards is the last thing that people are going to want to do, right? And that should be pretty scary for a lot of people out there, because if you watch a lot of these vlogs, I'm a very observant person, if you watch a lot of these vlogs, you'll see that there's people out there spending crazy amounts of money, and they're sort of living paycheck to paycheck. And if you're at the point now where you are doing that, then you're going to be really exposed when the cash rate rises do come in. And you're going to see people are going to start flipping as many cards as possible because, when they can't afford to pay their bills or they can't afford to feed their family, why would they want a piece of cardboard in their collection, right? And there's so many people out there that have, like I said, overextended themselves with these purchases. So they're going to be caught quite hard. They're not going to retain their value when this occurs, because at the end of the day, like I said, when people need to feed their family, that's more important. Now, this is interesting for a few reasons, because there might be people out there as well that, can say, okay, well, I'm comfortably saving like $500 a month. On top of all my bills, I'm saving $500 a month. That $500 lets me, buy takeout when I want, lets me go out to dinner with my wife, lets me save for a holiday. That's what that money's there for. I can use it to buy cards. That's going to be the first thing that sort of dries up when this cash rate rise does come in, right? Because everything's going to get more expensive. You're going to have less money to spend because it's going to your mortgage, or food's going to become more expensive. So you don't have that money anymore. And then what's going to happen even further is you're going to start getting into the negative, right? So you're actually going to be losing, you're not going to have enough money every month to pay for your bills. If you're in the mindset, whether you've got these people that have been they haven't been very sensible with their approach to spending money, right? They're spending money left, right, and center, buying all this crap, overextending themselves, overexposing themselves, and the next thing you know, they can't afford to pay their bills. So what do you think is going to happen then? People are going to start dumping cards, okay? And cards are going to be worth, $1,000 before are not going to be worth anything when this happens, right? Because everybody's going to be doing it, because there's so many people out there, like I said, that are not true collectors and they've bought it purely from an investment perspective. And then two, they're going to sell them because they need their friggin' money. And it's going to be a pretty scary time. And I'm excited for this to occur because I'm a collector. I want to start buying cards again for free, but I'm not excited about what it means for people out there, because people could go homeless off the back of this, right? We could be seeing a financial crisis worse than what we went through with the GFC, right? And that's really scary. We could be entering, a recession not seen since the Great Depression, right? Which is really freaking scary. So I don't wish this to occur, and I don't want to sit back and laugh like, oh, you idiots out there, you spent all this money on cards, you should have been more smart with your money. It's like, no, I'm concerned for you if that's going to happen to you, right? Because it's freaking scary what the ramifications are of this, right? And the reason why I think this is going to happen really fast in card collecting, like I touched on, a bit of the domino effect, is we've always had, the four big sports. You've had your NBA, you've had your hockey, or I should say your NBA, your NFL, your baseball, and your hockey, I guess, would be the four big things that people collect. And I might be missing something if I sound like an idiot, say down in the comments below what I'm missing. But those have always been the big four, right? They've always essentially held their value to an extent because that's what most people like to watch. You sort of had soccer coming in. Soccer cards always didn't really do that well, but people collected them because soccer is a huge sport, right? But then what you saw over the last 2 years is that people wanted to try and make as much money as possible. So they sat back and said, okay, these big sports are recurring, they're interesting, but I can't get into those cards. So, what other cards for other sports can I get into that I think I can make money on? So people started deviating away from that, right? So they went to things like F1, they went into things like NASCAR, they went into things like other soccer leagues, they went into things like MetaZoo, they went into, other non-trading cards. They went into things from the 90s, like these Marvel cards from the 90s that are not rare, that are now selling for $50 to $100 in a PSA slab. But all these things that people have just kept stepping away, right? So if you think about those four major sports being in the middle, and then you've got all these people stepping away, okay, all these other things moving away from what the core hobby values, okay? You're all the way out here when the hobby no longer has the money to sustain this kind of like extension, right? And when I say extension, I mean like deviating away from what sets and what the hobby truly values. They're going to fall really fast. So NASCAR, like if you look at NASCAR and F1 cards, they're really freaking expensive. Those things will fall away really fast because at the end of the day, not many people are into those things. Like yes, F1 starting to get a bit more of a big following, but you get what I'm trying to say, right? So all these things are going to fall away and it's going to die in the ass. All these sets like MetaZoo, other random non-trading card sets that I can't think of right now because my mind's going blank while I'm trying to talk to you. You get what I'm trying to say, right? These things are going to fall away. So if you're not in, or if a big chunk of your investment is not in these core sports, you better be prepared for them to not be worth anything, right? Because that's sort of the point we're getting towards. And if you're a true collector, it doesn't really matter what happens to the market, right? Because, prices come up, down, really high, really low over a 10, 20, 30-year period, right? So that doesn't really matter to you. But if you're somebody that spent tens, hundreds of thousands of dollars worth on trading cards with the expectation it's going to, be a retirement fund, okay, that's fine if you hold it for long term, but not a lot of people think like that. A lot of these people have, incurred a lot of credit card debt, a lot of personal loans, taking cash advances on credit cards, things like that to fund this sort of stuff. Those bills are going to come calling and they're not going to be worth anything when those bills do come calling because everybody's going to want to recoup their money at the same time. And then when you try and offload your cards, you've got 10,000 other people trying to offload the same freaking card. That's not to mention the print runs I spoke about in my last video, right? Makes these cards sort of worthless. And I've spoken about this many times on the channel in the past about how I like to approach collecting, right? Because I've spoken about it many times in the sense that I come from quite a poor family, okay? So I always feel really guilty when I pay money for a card. I hate spending $100 on a piece of cardboard, right? I do like to collect. That's why I do buy it, because I'm really obsessive and really compulsive like that. But, I've come from a really poor family that struggled to put food on the table. So in the back of my mind, it's like, well, I need to try and get into this card because I love to collect, but I need to try and get into this without it costing me anything. So I've mentioned many times that, I try and apply a $0 cost base approach to my collecting. When I say cost base, I mean the amount you've purchased that card for. So as an example, if I buy a card for $300, like one of those Dragon Ball Z cards, not worth that, but as an example, let's say I bought that Vegeta, the one in the middle, at the front for $300. I would then buy 10, 15 other cards, right, that I maybe don't want. I spend a little bit more to get those, and then flip them all to make a small little profit, okay? So now I've sold them all. I've got that Vegeta for free because I made my $300 back selling all those other cards. And I typically do that for every single card that I keep in my PC because I hate spending money. And what that allows me to do is two things. It allows me to, not feel guilty when I do buy these things, but also build out my collection, which is really good. But when the market sort of dies in the ass, it gives me the ability to sell that card for a huge loss, on face value for what it's actually worth in the market if I need to. That card might be worth $300 now, but when the market sort of hits the shit, like I explained what's going to happen potentially with the rise of inflation, cash rate increases, people overextending themselves, I can then afford to sell that card for $50 because I've already made my $300 back previously and now I can sell it for $50 and still be $50 ahead. You know what I mean? And that's the logic that some of you need to maybe start implementing if you haven't already, because things are going to get messy. And I don't want to sound like I'm doom and glooming, right? I just want to call this out there because not a lot of people are talking about this in this way. And when the cash rates do come in and you've got these people out there that are, living week to week as it is, trying to fund their trading card hobby, trying to fund their YouTube channel as they go around the country making vlogs and things like that, what do you think is going to happen when those bills come in? It's going to be very scary. Do you think these trading card shows are still going to run? Do you think there's going to be that many people still attending a trading card show? you think there's going to be that many people paying $20 to attend the card show when, petrol is like $3-4 a litre or whatever the price is? I think it's like $8-9 a gallon. When it gets to $10, $12, $13 a gallon, do you think people are going to still want to spend money on trading cards? It's really interesting because I've got my sort of fingers in many different hobbies, right? I've touched on this in the past as well. I collect, trading cards, comic books. I'm into like high-end Swiss watches. I love my watches. I love the, again, I hate spending money on them because they're quite expensive, but I like the nature of them. It's mechanical. I can hand it down to my kids, that sort of stuff, right? I've got Hot Toys figures up there. And I'm seeing every single one of those hobbies experiencing the same sort of stuff we're seeing in trading cards now, where you got over the 2-year boom that we had, everything was selling for crazy prices. Now things are starting to decline, and there's not that many people that are buying things on the secondhand market for as much money as they were in the past. And when you're seeing it happen across the board, it's not just focused in on trading cards. It's going to happen everywhere. It's just very scary, and you need to make sure that you can be very prepared, when this stuff does happen. Because like I said, from an Australian perspective, we're at a 0.85% cash rate now. If they want to get to 2.5% by December, on an average mortgage, you're looking at $400 to $500 more a month in terms of your interest repayment, which means your minimum repayment goes up by the same amount. That's a lot of money. That's a lot less disposable income that you're going to have. And that's going to impact everyone. So even when you go to sell a card, nobody's going to be there to buy it. So I know I ranted a little bit today, and I hope it did make sense. I just wanted to chat through that, right? Because not a lot of people are talking about it from this perspective. And I just really hope it sort of, wakes a few people up, because maybe it's not going to happen. Maybe the market's not going to crash the way we expect it to, or what it's looking like. Maybe inflation will somehow magically get under control in a much easier method, or it happens much faster. It doesn't take a long period of time, so it doesn't impact the hobby or the market, global economy, and things like that. We don't go through a huge recession. So if that is the case, you're going to be fine. But if it's not going to be the case, it'd be really good for you to implement some of the things I mentioned regarding try and reduce your cost base. Try and get out of some cards now that you maybe don't truly like long term, because you need to be positioning yourself to try and offload these if you need to, in my opinion. A lot of people are not doing that right now. It's very scary. Like, I feel sorry for everyone in this position, right? I don't want to come across, and I don't want to be one of those people that, like I said earlier, you're laughing at someone if they're going to struggle through this situation, because, the outcome with regards to the rise of inflation, with the potential recession, biggest since we've seen the Great Depression following World War II, like, it's catastrophic. People could lose lives. That's how bad it could get, right? People are going to lose their jobs, lose their house, live on the streets, die. That's literally how scary it's going to be. So, I don't wish that on anyone, so I hope none of you do either. Please share your thoughts down in the comments below on this. I know it's very long, almost 13 minutes, so I do apologize. I rambled, but I think it's a very important point, so very keen to get your thoughts. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. Cheers.